The United Football League begins its season this Saturday with a clash of champions. We're going to get to see USFL champion Birmingham at XFL champion Arlington to kick off this 2024 season, the first in the UFL's history. All right, top line here. This USFL, I'm going to say it. We're going to get past it, I promise. This UFL is the deepest spring league that we have seen since the 1985 USFL, right? The one where we had seen Mike Rozier, Herschel Walker, Doug Flutie. Talk about 3 Heisman winners in that 1980s era of USFL football. As a matter of fact, 1985, the Birmingham Stallions used their first pick on Jerry Rice coming out of Mississippi Valley State. Like that's the level of talent that we're talking about. However, going into this year with the XFL and the USFL no longer fighting for players, the two have combined, kept 4 from each league and created 14 conferences. And now we get to see some of these dudes that can absolutely play. Now, before I get into those players, one of the things that I think is really great about the United Football League is how forward-thinking the brass is about its rules, because the whole point of this is to make this an easier watch for you and me, right? The length of the games is dramatically shorter than the NFL or even college football. And you've seen both the NFL and college football take measures to try to shorten their games, right? With timeouts, TV timeouts, and what have you. But I think early on Tuesday, when the NFL announced that it was going to adopt the XFL's kickoff rule for 2024, you get to see the value of a spring football league like this one playing, where the NFL gets to watch it, evaluate what it's doing well, and perhaps adopt some of those things that make a more entertaining game. So what they're adopting is the kickoff rule from the XFL, which is going to allow for more returns. For so long, you and I have been conditioned not to watch the kickoff because we know it's probably going to be a touchback. Either somebody's going to kick it out of the back of the end zone, or somebody's going to catch it and take a knee, or somebody's going to catch it, call fair catch, going to go to TV timeout and break, right? What if you could turn that into the kind of spectacle that it once was? Some of y'all know Devin Hester. None of y'all know Dante Hall. I mean, some of y'all know Dante Hall because y'all my age, but the human joystick was real. And yet, Kansas City, who wasn't nobody, had this dude that we were saying, don't kick it to him, and he would run it back, right? Or the stories that can come out of these things. Desmond Howard telling a story about, hey, I was playing the NFL, and I watched Deion Sanders get hyped and mad that somebody had scored a touchdown. So he said, put me in there. I'm going to get 6. Put him back there. He ran it back. Last year, I was in Memphis at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium to watch Derek Dillon pull his heels up off of the back of the end zone and return a kickoff for the longest touchdown for kickoff return in pro football history, 109.5 yards. One of the coolest experiences that I've ever had in a stadium. What if you could give more of those? What if you could turn the returner into the star that he once was, right? And this, again, goes back to something that spring football, particularly the USFL in 2022, did well. Kevontae Turpin won MVP. One of the reasons that he won MVP is because that dude could take it back, right? That was a dude that had washed out of Texas Christian, didn't really have a future in the NFL, rehabilitated himself in the USFL, and turned himself into an MVP that got onto the roster for the Dallas Cowboys and was voted an All-Pro in his first year as a Dallas Cowboy that same year for what he could do returning the football, right? So we're going to be watching specialists already. Those rules, as they continue to come into the UFL, should get your attention because you could be watching those things on Sundays in the fall. Now, another storyline that I think is going along with how deep this particular league is just how many names you know and how many players you know in this league. So for starters here, right? Adrian Martinez played Nebraska, played Kansas State, Birmingham Stallion. Matt Corral, who was on this show, right, getting ready for the NFL draft just last year, Birmingham Stallion. Jamar Smith, who's been a part of 2 USFL champion Birmingham Stallions, right? He's back. And that's just over there in Birmingham. At Arlington, Luis Perez, who's played in both the XFL and USFL, probably starts this year as the starter for Bob Stoops. Behind him, Lindsey Scott, one of the most prolific passers in FCS in 2022. And behind him, Holt Nailers, who was Tim Tebow Light at East Carolina, right? Not to mention there are a number of former Oklahoma players on Arlington's roster, right? Guys like Jalen Redmond, Drew Samia, you'll continue to go here, right? That's just kicking off this clash of champions, which I'm really excited about because I spent so much time with Birmingham in the last couple of years, and we all know how I feel about Coach Stoops, right? By the way, another plug here. If you haven't watched the video essay that we did about Oklahoma over the last 25 years and what it means for the Sooners to play football and to be the pro football team in this state, please give that your time. I'm really been overwhelmed by the positive reception that we received from this because it felt like got this one right. Now, on top of all of that, that's just 2 of the 6 teams in this league that are going to feature players like A.J. McCarron, who asked for his release from Cincinnati so he could play for the St. Louis Battlehawks, and Anthony Beck. Anthony Beck, who is the head coach of the most popular UFL team in the St. Louis Battlehawks, who regularly get 30,000 folks to show up to their dome to watch them play. And they are going to have the honor of hosting the UFL championship game on Father's Day this year. Anthony Beck, whose son Rocco Beck turned into an absolute star at Iowa State playing quarterback for Matt Campbell, right? Keep going down the line here. Danny Etling, remember him coming out of LSU? A dude that I don't think can actually go back to Georgia for, reasons. He is going to be in this league, along with other guys like Case Cookins, who was on a Philadelphia Stars team that came seemingly out of nowhere in 2022 to what ended up being an outstanding run to the playoffs, right? And then had a great season last year. He's going to play for the Memphis Showboats. And John DeFilippo, who was so excited to be a head coach for the New Orleans Breakers, now defunct New Orleans Breakers last year, who's going to be calling plays from that sideline, right? Going to give opportunities to guys like Cookins, who comes out of the FCS, like Lindsey Scott, and turns himself into a spring football league star. Jordan Tamu, who's, again, played in both leagues, right? First, beginning his career in the USFL. Last year, doing an outstanding job for the DC Defenders. And this year, he's got guys like Davin Bellamy coming back, another guy that's played in both leagues, and Abram Smith, who rushed for 1,600 yards at Baylor just a couple of years ago and is the leading rusher last year across both leagues. There's talent everywhere. I mean, Scooby Wright is back at Birmingham, one of the most decorated defensive players in all of college football ever. Slade Bolden, remember him? Playing slot receiver at Alabama. He's at Birmingham. DeMarcus Gates returns. He's probably going to play another season with a floss pick in his mouth. Cool. He was able to play with Chicago Bears and went just fine doing the same damn thing. Wayne Gallman is going to be playing tailback for the St. Louis Battlehawks, a dude that was a part of some outstanding Clemson teams. Again, I throw a rock. I hit an all-conference player. I hit an all-American. I hit a Biletnikoff Award winner like Corey Coleman, the leading tackler, to say the defensive player of the year last year, Frank Ginda. This is going to be an outstanding year for those of us that have lived and breathed spring football for the last couple of years, because along with these guys, we're also going to get to see who can be the next, not just Kavontae Turpin, but Brandon Aubrey. Brandon Aubrey is a very interesting case of what spring football can do for the NFL and for these players to get into it. Brandon Aubrey had never played football before he got to the Birmingham Stallions, okay? He helped design the USFL ball that they used in 2022, and then when they went away from putting the technology in the balls that allowed for tracking, all of a sudden began to go on a tear. And GMs across the league would tell me that guy needs to be on an NFL roster somewhere. And I don't know much about specialists, right? I know defensive back play. I know quarterbacks. After that, I usually defer. But what I saw was a dude that made his kicks. And he's making kicks on a team that wins championships. Finally gets an opportunity, training camp for the Dallas Cowboys. Makes the team, and then proceeds to set an NFL record for the most consecutive field goals made by a kicker. All-pro in his rookie year in the NFL, after swearing up and down he's going to play soccer because he was a great defender at Notre Dame, even had a career for the Toronto FC, in MLS. It's going to try to give them a mascot. They ain't got one. The point here is this is an opportunity you can get. So can Donald DeLahaye, destroying on the YouTubes, be that next guy from the specialist? He's going to play for the San Antonio Brahmas. We'll see, right? I know that he has been all over the socials for the UFL, and I would expect that he wants to have a big year because we know what his entertainment value provides to the league. Now he gets an opportunity to show to the NFL that, hey, it's not just the entertainment value I can provide you. My leg is actual. I will kick it from wherever I got to kick it, and we'll make it do what it do. That's all over the map, right? I'm curious to find out who from this crop of UFL players gets an opportunity at the next level, not just in training camp now, because we're past that, right? We know that UFL players are going to get training camp invites. Who can make rosters? Who can get a check? Who can go from making $5,500 a game in the UFL to $800,000, $700,000, life-changing generational wealth because they took the opportunity given to them in this 10-game season to show folks what they could do on national television. Big Fox, FS1, ESPN, ESPN2. The games, all 43 of them, are going to be nationally televised. We're all going to get to see what these guys are made of each and every week. I could not be more excited about that. And because I could not be more excited about that, we will return on April 2nd with our UFL power rankings week to week. Okay? So I'm going to rank them 1 to 8. Somebody's going to get their feelings hurt because somebody got to be 8. Somebody's going to get a talking to because they got to be 1, right? I'm very curious to find out how this game between, say, Arlington and Birmingham goes because I think both of those teams are in positions to say, no, it's ours, to which Birmingham will be like, hey, dog, we make a business of winning. Y'all got lucky in a playoff and won a couple of games with a losing record. I'm sure that Arlington at home wants to make it do what it do and put that to rest. I'm also very interested to see how it works out with these respective conferences because I think as I evaluate the USFL conference and the XFL conference, folks that have been watching one or the other more often are already going to be pulling for somebody, right? To say nothing of, do you know some of these players on these teams? I'm curious to see who can get the better of each other, the XFL or the USFL, because bragging rights will very much be at stake, and I think this is a very good thing. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Then we will debut for the first time, as we have done a spring football show here, the MVP power rankings week to week for the entire year 2024. The reason that we are doing this is because the MVP in the USFL has made it to the NFL and remained in the NFL. Kevontae Turpin with the Dallas Cowboys. Last year, Alex Magoo got to watch as his dude. I can't believe I'm going to say this. As the Green Bay Packers embarrassed the Dallas Cowboys in a playoff that Green Bay Packers were not supposed to be in. Full credit to my guy, Alex Magoo, right, who has been outstanding in the USFL. I'm glad he got the win, but Jerry, stop scribbling on the pad, dog, and get us some teams here that can play. Get us some players that can win that game. We getting roasted. But the point is, he's not returning to the UFL, right? He gets to stay in Green Bay and help them build toward what they hope is another run at the playoffs and perhaps a run at the Super Bowl in 2024. So we're going to keep tabs on individual performances from kickoff returns to wide receivers to quarterbacks, see who can do, right? I expect this to be a really clean product too. And that was always going to be kind of my worry going into spring football is what's the offensive line going to be like? What's quarterback play going to be like? Is it going to look a little too high school football? No, it's not been really the case. But the caliber of quarterback play is so good and the offensive line talent is so good that we're going to see, I think, really the best product that we have seen since spring football returned in a big way in 2022. And we're going to talk about it for the next 10, 11, 12 weeks right here on the #1 college football show. If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.